So, welcome to the next edition of the Punk CX podcast. With me today, I have Elizabeth Maxson, who is the CMO of Contentful, who's going to come and talk to me all about Contentful and what they're up to, but also a recent piece of research that they released called When Machines Make Marketeers More Human. Just want to say, Elizabeth, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. Nice to see you.
Yes, nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, sometimes I do a bit of a bio intro and then ask people if they want to add anything. But this time, I'm going to ask you. Can you tell me a little bit about you and give us a bit of background or a bit of a thumbnail sketch on the work that you do?
Of course. Well, first, I've been a marketer my entire life and really got my start on the experience marketing agency side, working with all different technology and automotive companies. Then I moved into corporate, where I spent more than a decade at Salesforce. Had
Mhm.
a lot of opportunities working from strategic events, corporate messaging, leading marketing for major strategic technology partners with AWS, Apple, Disney Plus, and Alibaba. And then I became the CMO of Tableau and then moved over to Contentful. So I'm a two-time CMO, but also a four-time mom. I have four kiddos under 8, and my family and I live in San Francisco.
Nice. Wow. It's like more than one full-time job, I think.
Yeah, it feels like a lot. But my main full-time job is focusing on Contentful. And for those that are not well versed in Contentful, we are a leading digital experience platform that really helps modern businesses meet and grow the demand for engaging and personalized content and really doing that at scale. And you probably have actually interacted with our platform and maybe not even have known it, whether you are shopping online, you're ordering food on a tablet at your favorite restaurant, or maybe you're checking your favorite team game day stats. We really support 4,200 customers, including Kraft Heinz and KFC and Ruggable, to really help all of our customers deliver digital experiences across all channels.
Nice. Now, when I started the intro, I mentioned that Contentful had just recently released a research report called When Machines Make Marketeers More Human. So first of all, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the research, and I wonder if you could tell me how it came about and what are some of the main headlines.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's happening right now in AI is that there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. Marketers are feeling in fear that their jobs are going to be replaced by AI. And we've had a hypothesis that, maybe that's not actually the case. And we partnered up with The Atlantic. They have an amazing research insights team. And we surveyed over 425 marketing decision makers, specifically, just over 100 of those were CMOs across all industries, company sizes. This was a global effort. And what we found is actually, in a lot of cases, AI can help amplify the marketer and not take their jobs away. And we felt this was really important to shed this light and really give some more positivity out into the world of how an exciting time it is to be a marketer versus living a little bit more in that fear base.
So yeah, I mean, thank you for that. I mean, there was a couple of things that when I went through the report, there was a couple of things that stood out for me, and I wanted sort of to dig into it, if I may, just to get your perspective
Yeah.
on it. And one of the things that the report said that it talked about marketeers moving beyond experimentation with some of these tools, and moving into production and workflows, but it sort of suggested that they're not quite there yet, and they were still sort of struggling with a bunch of pain points or challenges and stuff. I mean, can you help us understand what some of those main pain points and challenges are?
I mean, so there's always the age old do more with less, right? That is not new to any marketing team or marketing leadership. But I think with AI, there's this immediate need to want to move fast. Teams want to move fast. In fact, 40% of marketers say fast and efficient execution is really going to define their success. And another part of that is also delivering quality content. 42% rank high quality content and consistency is really going to be important for marketing teams to succeed. I think what we're coming to this pivotal point right now is AI is changing so rapidly. maybe a tool you started using this summer, which maybe was not great, is now wildly different now in the fall. And I think there is trying to think about how can tools seamlessly integrate into your tech stack is a big question to really get out of that experimentation phase,
Mhm.
but also less of kind of one-on-one experimentation and more about what are ways you can actually deeply embed AI into your workflows to help create that speed and efficiencies. And for us on the content side, I mean, the best marketers in the world don't just use AI to produce more content. I think it's a whole nother podcast we could do on that. We really believe that more content doesn't equal better content.
Right.
Better content equals better content. And really having that human in the loop, creating that content is going to be really critical. So, I really see the catalyst to be able to move to more informed decisions and move ideas to concept into the market faster is really going to use AI to help amplify that creativity on the human side to really make marketers more effective.
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. But I also going to know that you talked about like how things are just exploding. It's like you talked about there's a tool that was like, yeah, it was okay, it was kind of interesting, and then it's like, yeah, but not quite useful, and then it just matures so quickly. But there's an explosion of these sort of things. I mean, I always refer to, I think it's Scott Brinker and Franz Weiserman's kind of like Martech landscape sort of report
Mhm.
that comes out, and the number of tools that are available to marketeers and other connected professionals is just quite alarming. I mean, how many tools are the different tools are they using?
Well, I'll be honest. This is the one part of the report I was a little bit more shocked by. We found in the report that the most successful teams that are optimizing their existing tech stacks on average use 6 to 10 tools. Now, I'll be honest, in my own team, we have about 30 AI tools that we are still using. However, I was at a CMO dinner in New York last month and I was sitting next to a CMO in healthcare who thought 10 tools was too many. So it's like this very interesting place. And I think that's also deciding where are you at? Are you still in experimentation? I think once you get into fully embedding AI into the workflows, that is when you're taking that step and reducing into that 6 to 10 range. But in the end, listen, the tools are fleeting. This is more about building a culture that embraces AI. And I think that's a really important step that a lot of companies are missing right now.
And is it that the are we not in danger as well because it's all this explosion of tools? Like you talk, some people kind of like say 10, some people say 15, some people say 30, and I'm like blood starts to drain from my face. And I think about that, and I just think that's feels like it's adding this level of tech sprawl and complexity, kind of, and it's almost like a layering on another kind of problem to the existing adoption,
Mhm.
understanding, utilization, move to productivity sort of like thing as well. And so, what would you say is what are you learning and what you're seeing in terms of what's going to help people get to the that cutting them down and getting focused on these are the ones that we used for now, and then we'll review kind of later. Kind of what do they need? What do people need to do? Do they need to just decide to cut? Because I mean, I know that in organizations, like in life generally, it's always easier to add things than it is to take things away.
Yes. I mean, I'm a big less is more fan, so I definitely live that. That said, I think maybe what teams are not doing is setting proper goals. And again, this is all about having more of an AI culture. So, for example, everyone's testing, experimenting, but for what end goal? So if I want to say to my design team, hey, listen, I want you to cut $100,000 of our agency costs to deliver our next 3 video content. That is a goal. That's a mission. It's, allowing them to use tools to get to that. But obviously, it's helping me from a cost perspective to then use those dollars for something else. So that is something that we've really been thinking about in our team is how to be more goal focused and not just using tools for the sake of using them and trying to find these speeds. I think it's really hard for teams to track right now. I mean, we're just doing a simple tracker ourselves of,
Right.
what's the use case and is it saving us time or is it saving us money or maybe both? And how are we tracking that? And then are there use cases that have become trends in my team that I'm like, okay, it's very clear that we are getting this from this tool. This is a tool we really need to start investing in and making this fully embedded. So I think maybe taking a more holistic approach at the tools, making sure that it's focused on goals and actual outcomes can help really bridge that gap that I think a lot of teams are having right now of making that decision. Where do they decide? I think that's what
Yeah.
they need to start to do.
I mean, I'm always kind of one that advocates for, that old saying, like start with the end in mind, or
Mhm.
like to ape Steve Jobs back in 1997, where he says, like, you've got to like, describe the customer experience and then work backwards to the technology. I mean, it feels like, I've always advocated for that from a designing a customer's experience or an experience that you want a
Mhm.
customer to have. But we also know that kind of the employee experience is a key part of driving kind of positive customer outcomes. And maybe we need to sort of apply that discipline to ourselves, is that almost to step back and make some time. And I know it's hard just to go, let's describe how we would like things to work and then work backwards to the technology. Maybe that will help us decide what's the best tool for the best part of that whole process.
I love that. I think, you're reminding me of a speaker coach that I've had for many years. And whenever I'm, about to get on a keynote stage, for example, she always says, what do you want the audience to think and to feel and to take away from that moment? And I feel like we can almost apply the same thing to marketers. It's like using these tools. What do you want them to do? What do you want them to feel? They want to feel empowered. They want to feel accomplished. They want to feel like they're moving fast. They want to feel like they're impacting the business. They want to be able to be living, those attributes along the way. So I think that's a great perspective that all marketing teams could share.
Nice. And so we talked about this tool proliferation, or call it what you will, and people are using kind of tons and tons of new kind of tools or experimenting with these new tools. I mean, what is the research also telling us about, I guess, skills and capability gaps?
Mhm.
Because it feels a bit like somebody's just gonna like showing you, oh, like here's a new type of car. Now go and get in the car. That you've learned, you know how to drive this car, a combustion engine, but this is a completely different type of car, which has a completely different set of controls and all sorts of different things. Now you can go and drive that. You can drive this, therefore, surely you can drive that. But that's a massive assumption, right? And so, what's the research telling us about some of the skills and capability gaps that we're going to see, and how are marketers keeping up?
Well, to be honest, I think there is a completely new generation of marketers that are on the rise, and that is what we call a full stack marketer.
Okay.
So, what I mean by that is a full stack marketer is someone that they are fluent in AI enabled workflows, they're skilled at writing effective prompts, they're navigating these diverse technology stacks, and they are embedding tools into their daily operations. And this is really critical as we think about different ways that marketers need to be in all parts of their operations, how they need to be approaching things differently. But I also think a big part of this is not just on the technical side, and it's more of their mindset. And a lot of conversations I'm having with CMOs are actually talking about what are the different soft skills we need to be hiring for and
Hmm.
looking for. So for me, what does AI don't have? AI doesn't have lived experiences and cultural resonance.
Hmm.
You and I have that. We're humans,
Hmm.
right? We also have curiosity, we have empathy, we have feelings. There's so much more that I think really goes into creating marketing that is really going to be memorable. And if you think about right now, as teams are using generative AI to produce content, a lot of it is all starting to sound the same. It's becoming really generic, and marketers are not really differentiating themselves. This is why they need to keep the human in the loop and really use AI to amplify their human creativity, to provoke that human emotion, and really start personalizing content that is going to resonate with customers at the right place, at the right time, in the right way. And those soft skills to me are really what's going to have to come into handy as marketers are trying to be more successful.
Yeah, no, I think it's the you talk about. I mean, I think the generic there's the overriding term is AI slop when people talk
Yes.
about kind of the content, and I think it's I actually think there's something artful about creating a human connection, and these large language models are getting ever more impressive, but they won't do I don't think they'll do the different sort of thing, because it's all based on kind of what's kind of known and what's already been articulated, right? And it's extrapolating
Right.
from that. And it feels like to me, you remember that, I don't know if you've heard that story where it's about somebody walked into a bar and saw Ernest Hemingway nursing a drink at the bar and said, and challenged him to write the shortest short story. And he was like, he took a napkin and he wrote on it, "Baby shoes, never worn, for sale." And it,
Perfect.
and it's a short story in six
Right.
words. And
Right.
you look at it and just go, "Oh, that could mean so many things,
Yes.
depending on how you see that." Now,
Hmm.
you could create a derivation of that or something that's like that once that's already written down and known, but you're never going to create something which is uniquely different, that somebody just makes that connection and goes, "Oh, here's a different way of kind of explaining it." And I think that's where I think that we've got to also, you talked about curiosity and empathy, and I would say that there's an artfulness that we've got to lean into as marketeers, but also with all the lists of the things that you're talking about, they're kind of becoming a full stack marketer. I'm a bit like, these people sound like they should be featuring in a DC or Marvel comic. They feel like
Yeah,
superheroes.
I think they are going to be superheroes. You know, a framework that we use internally when we think about provoking that human emotion and really trying to tie into that personalization is the difference between stick it and push it. So, stick it means like you're on message or you've said the right thing, you've said the thing
Mm-hmm.
that our product does, right? You've called the thing a thing. But push it is really what did you make someone feel on the other side? And again, bringing in your own lived experiences to create that messaging and create that content is really going to be important. And that's what I've been driving my team is to push it. And I really do think a lot of marketing leaders need to empower their teams to do the same. Otherwise, the AI slop will just continue on for a long time.
Yeah. And I know that in recent years that, people have, and particularly marketeers, have been pushing to create, deliver sort of more personalized experiences to their customers. And they've been making strides in that. But then customers are also being saying, "Oh yeah, we want that too, but we've got privacy, security, and sort of data concerns about
Mhm.
that." I mean, and that was sort of mirrored partially on the marketeer side. They're like, not so sure," because I remember an old piece of research which surveyed consumers and then surveyed marketers about personalization, and the largest proportion of consumers kind of said, "Yeah, look, we'd love to have a personalized experience," and marketers saying, "Yeah, sure, we want that," but the consumers are also saying, "We don't want it to be creepy." But then 60% of the marketeers that were surveyed also admitted, saying, about kind of like two-thirds of the, or something like that, of the campaigns that they put out, they would be, we'd probably judge them to be a creepy or somewhat creepy.
Mhm.
And so there's lines and bounds and all this sort of like stuff. But I wanted to understand, what does the research tell us about the concerns that marketeers have around privacy and security concerns with some of the the expansion of some of these new tools and the power of these new tools?
I think in the end, it's really about just using them in the right way. I mean, if you think about it, personalization is not new, right? We've been
Mhm.
personalizing email for many years. Even if you got an email that didn't say "Hi, Adrian," I'm sure you would immediately delete that from your inbox, or how much it gets screwed up when you see customer, in a
Yeah.
quote. So I think it's about finding the right balance. And a lot of times, talking again to CMOs, they really just don't know where to start with personalization. And it doesn't have to be creepy. You can think big, start small, and move fast in very simple ways. A great example that I love to use, even on our own website. If you've been to our website before, you're not going to see the same message that you saw the last time. Had you never been there before.
Okay.
These are just very two different audiences, right? Same with if you're an existing customer, I shouldn't have messages on my website of why buy Contentful. You've already bought the product. You should be learning more about adoption of what we have coming in our newest features.
Right.
So I think a lot of marketers get caught up into overthinking all their personas, all their industries, all of their global, what's localized, what's not, what has this flair, what has that flair. And I think everyone just needs to take a big step back. You can be putting these personalized engagements in very big buckets, but still have really amazing impact. Another quick example for you is we've used geotagging to support our field events in just an eyebrow header on our website.
Okay.
So, for example, we host this event called Contentful at the Cinema, where we buy out AMCs all over the world and we host customers for major movie premieres.
Hmm.
So, we've done this for Formula One, who's a customer of ours, as well as Wicked 2's coming up. That's our next set. And so in the cities that we are promoting these events, and we know from geotagging you're in that city, it'll say, "Hey, San Francisco, join us here at this event," just in the eyebrow header.
Right.
And we've increased our registration to those events by 51% by just adding that eyebrow.
Nice.
So there's just very simple use cases that I think, again, if marketing leaders can take a step back, they can think big, think of all the things you want to do, or maybe to your earlier comment about, let's start with the customer experience, right? What do you want that end customer experience to be? But I think a lot of people can actually start small and just
Mhm.
move fast with these mini experimentations on their website, and that's already a huge unlock for us here at Contentful. So been trying to evangelize our own use of Contentful to really get marketing leaders to be thinking a lot differently to be able to do that. And that's
Awesome.
not creepy. It's just very easy.
No, 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 not at all. It's like people want to find stuff that's relevant to them, right? And if you kind of
Exactly.
if you make it helpful by not being invasive, but just going, here's the thing, and it's not doesn't necessarily interrupt them. It's just you're showing it like, oh, hey, you're in San Francisco, or you're in Edinburgh, or you're in kind of like Warsaw, or you're in kind of Nairobi, or
Exactly.
you're like, oh no, we've got these things. Um, but then I also kind of know that sometimes a lot of the conversation gets homogenized around everybody's kind of facing the same problems. And it's sort of not true. It's never true, right? And I know the great thing about the research that it covered a whole bunch of different geographies. And I wanted to understand what also the research told you about the differences in kind of behaviors and performance that you're seeing. Let's take kind of, the difference in EMEA, or that sort of time zone sort of split, and also the US or the Americas and stuff. And are there distinct differences between kind of marketeers' experiences and their use of kind of AI and all these things?
There completely are. This is also really interesting part of the report. So, take European marketers. To me, they're thinking like engineers. They are the ones that are pioneering the governance skills and really thinking through governance. In fact, 32% are prioritizing governance as a framework. And if you think about the EU AI Act and
Hmm.
that reshaping the landscape, there's a lot more care there. Whereas US is really focused on more campaign optimization and testing. In
Okay.
fact, that's higher. It's 37% in the US focus against 26% in Europe. So those are some differences there. And then the other thing is also how we're testing tools. So Europe markets seem to be 58% are testing AI tools selectively and really against a defined plan versus only 43% in US teams. So maybe we're a little bit more experimental in the United States and a little bit more purposeful in Europe, which I found interesting. And then just one other stat for you that I found interesting, again, just on a macro level, is how much pressure CMOs have to be using AI. And 96% of them are absolutely certain AI will transform their business, but only 65% are actually making meaningful investments. And this is what we call the optimism execution gap, where there's intent, but the actual execution is not happening. So that's another interesting lens across globally, that stat. But
Mhm.
I think it's interesting how that breaks down with the different countries as well.
Yeah. I mean, I think I find that I have this theory, and it's a bit of a pet theory right now, and it's based on the story of the race between the tortoise and the hare.
Hmm.
And I think there's lessons to be learned from that story, and that there's a lot of people that are running around just being trying to be a hare, but it's like havoc. And then there's some people that are being a bit more, as you say, purposeful, or a bit more deliberate, or considerate, and measured in kind of what they do. And then they're advancing, and they know what they're doing and why. And I think we're probably going to see. It feels like it's 80% hares right now and about 20%
Hmm.
tortoises, if not 90-10. And I think that balance might shift a little bit more as things settle and people go, right now, these are very powerful tools. Now we need to start to deliver and make some some very conscious choices about what we're going to do and why.
100%. I completely agree with that story and think that is going to be the big shift. So we'll see where people land. Are you the hare or the turtle?
And so, one final question for me on the research is what some of the best teams are doing that's going to separate them from everyone else, because we hear various reports about people experimenting but not being able to scale, experimenting but not being able to generate kind of a significant ROI, and so on and so forth, or people just experimenting and don't get beyond experimenting into production at all. It almost becomes a bit of a false start. And so, is there anything in the research that is helping you can understand what the best teams are doing that's kind of allowing them to create that gap between them and everyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I believe the best teams that are going to succeed are really keeping humans at the center, both
Okay.
their employees and their end customers, and really prioritizing what those authentic human connections are. One of the things we believe here at Contentful is not B2B, not B2C, but B to H, business to human. And
Okay.
how are we really driving that connection to every human across every channel? And one of the last parts of the report, and this is actually one of my favorite topics, is this idea of evidence-based creativity. So
Okay.
think about it as a marketer, you're creative, but also data analysis is really a top skill that is highly ranked. And being able to be powered with AI insights to drive that creativity is really going to be the unlock for a lot of marketers to succeed. So that's like one of the things I definitely think is also on the rise as being part of that full stack marketer.
Nice. So, Elizabeth, that's all I have in terms of questions around digging into the report. I'll make sure I put a link to the report and the kind of show notes, everything, so everybody should go and check it out. Um, before we move on to sort of some quick fire questions,
Yes.
um, anything else that you'd like to highlight or add before we kind of dive in?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think this is the most exciting time to be a marketer. And this goes back to why we did this report. Also, thinking through the skills that marketers are ranking right now, it's data analysis, it's digital experience design, prompt optimization, and personalization. And if marketers go after that and they nurture that, as well as those soft skills of really leaning on those human experiences, the cultural resonance, that empathy and curiosity, those are the marketers that are going to really lead the pack. So I think that's important to consider.
Awesome. Now, here's the quick fire questions. Now, the first one, and this was all about your best advice. And the way that because we've talked about a bunch of things, and now I want to kind of like, you're an experienced kind of like person, and you've been around for a little while, and so you've probably got like wells of experience to draw on. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'll be asking people to boil it down by completing this sentence. And the sentence is, if you want to improve your customer experience, Elizabeth says, do this. ...
So I would say that in this world of AI, you can't lose sight of authenticity and the ability to connect with customers on a human level. And if you leverage AI to make your marketers more human, you are able to do that.
Awesome. Now, second one is a punk one, obviously.
I love this. Yes.
So here's a question. What company or brand do you think takes a more punk approach to customer experience, and why?
Well, first of all, I believe personalization done well, that is what punk is. And a customer that does it really well is actually Ruggable. So they've completely taken personalization to a new level, and they've been segmenting their customers just in two categories: dog owners and cat owners. Again, very simple, right? Think
Okay.
big, start small. So visitors who land on Ruggable's website via a dog related campaign, all of the rugs then have dogs pictured on them. Whereas if you came from a cat related campaign, then as a cat owner, you're seeing rugs that are specific for cats. So this has been huge for Ruggable. They've actually increased their conversion rates by 25%. And it's been really awesome for them to see where they started from experimenting with personalization and really driving impact across their company. So to
Wow.
me, personalization is punk.
Wow, that's cool. Like who knew? Adding a few cat and dog pictures, depending on kind of like where
Right.
they are, would improve your conversion rate by 25%.
Exactly.
It's wild. And so my final question before we kind of we wrap up is that I've been, for the last number of months, I've been asking people to share with me a good news story, because I wake up every morning and I can't help doom scrolling, and then I kind of slap myself and go do something a bit more positive. So, Elizabeth, tell me one of the most interesting, positive, or exciting things that you've seen in the last week. The thing that's made you smile.
I mean, honestly, my oldest daughter turned 8 yesterday, and she's in
Whee!
2nd grade. I can't tell you how curious this child is. I just
Hmm.
like the life of a 2nd grader. Every day, the types of questions that they ask and driving his curiosity. What it really meant to me and why it makes me smile, she's just starting to build momentum on her lived experiences.
Hmm.
And again, that is something AI will never have. And I think about, my kids' life and how they're all going to grow up in this AI era that's very different than you and I experiencing it today. It's going to be very life-changing in different ways, but I hope she never loses that curiosity. So I was thinking about that in the last 24 hours celebrating her birthday, and that has really resonated with me and has been keeping a smile on my face.
Perfect. Well, cheers to Elizabeth's daughter, and kind of maintaining the kind of the curiosity, and happy birthday to her too.
Thank you.
And so, Elizabeth, that's all I have. I just want to say thank you for, well, congratulations on the research. I think it's a really insightful piece of work. Thank you for sharing your time and your insight and your experience and expertise with us today. That's been awesome.
Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. And do tune in again. Thanks very much.